evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever the fuck you're watching this. This is Backyard Blitz episode number 95, brought to you by Backyard Sports. With me, I've got Big Stove. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. What about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing swell, doing swell. Another great weekend of football. Can't wait to talk about it.
No kidding.
I know the big news today is the Brian Flores lawsuit. And I think we've all kind of talked a little bit about Brian Flores' situation leading into,
it kind of trumped the actual news beforehand too.
Right. Like, so, Brady retires, and then we get this big fucking lawsuit. Like, we got a couple of cool things to talk about, non-playoff related necessarily, but we're going to talk about Flores a little later. We're going to definitely talk about Brady here, but let's get right into it and talk about this past weekend, man. We had another phenomenal weekend of playoff football. Dude. We've been absolutely spoiled with a few exceptions in the wild card weekend. We've had some tremendous games settled on walk-offs, settled by one score, settled in overtime. And we get treated
and the underdogs
The underdogs are just tearing it up, man. And the Rams break the curse of the 49ers, right? So let's start right in with Tiger King, buddy.
Hey,
Tiger King,
baby. Don't be doubting him. Don't be doubting him.
Yeah, he said we're here to stay.
Yeah,
and he wasn't kidding.
And every single weekend, it's someone, and I get it. It's a reporter's job to ask the questions and everything else. But to me, and Tiger King has the perfect response. And responses to the questions is, look, we're tired of being the underdog. We've proven ourselves to this point. Like, who else do you want us to beat? We beat Kansas City. We beat Tennessee.
We beat the 1 and the 2 seed.
Yes. Who else do you want us to beat? Like, and I love that BDE, that big dick energy that he brings to the table. And you saw it. You could see it when the Bengals drafted him, and just his composure, but just his demeanor.
Oh yeah,
and everything about him. Like, you could tell that he was going to be someone special in the NFL. And unfortunately, the first year with the knee injury, it got derailed earlier than expected. But man, he's had a hell of a bounce back season so far. It's not done yet. And I just love his mentality and his energy that he brings. And when people ask, what do you think about being the underdog, or blah, 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 this and that. And he says, look, this is not the icing on the cake. This is the cake. We're not done yet. It reminds me of that Mamba mentality. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. And when they're in the playoffs and the reporter asked Kobe a question, and if I can find the clip, I'll play it. But it's basically, Kobe basically says, we're not done. Like, what's there to be happy about? We're not done. Like, this isn't finished. And Burrow, to me, has that same mentality, has that same mindset, that I think, man, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. And my dad mentions Nick Wright. He's been all over Mahomes and then apologizes for him this week. Like, everybody's entitled to have a bad game. But you don't say that when Brady has a bad game. So you kiss my ass there, Nick Wright. Tiger King doesn't need to prove himself anymore. He's already proved himself. Second year with a team that wasn't expected to make the playoffs, expected to finish last in their division, and they're in the Super Bowl. And it's not like they had a paved road where the 1 seed got knocked off early. They knocked off the 1 seed.
Yeah.
The 2 seed didn't get knocked off early. They knocked off the 2 seed. So I'm out on that bullshit of him needing to prove himself. Tiger King's done everything he needs to prove himself as that guy to lead this team. Now, to move into that elite upper echelon, the top couple of quarterbacks in the league, sure, he's got some time to prove that. That's a consistency thing. But there ain't nothing left for him to fucking prove that he can stay in this league.
Exactly.
He's breaking the mold, too, right? Guys that only start 1 year in college, guys that win the Heisman, guys that win national championships aren't supposed to succeed in today's NFL. It's not how it works. It ain't been done in a long time. Nobody's ever won national championship, Heisman, and Super Bowl. Joe Burrow might be the guy to do it, but guys who win the Heisman over the last 20 years have not been successful.
They have not been successful. Exactly.
And it's a long time coming, but he's the guy. He is the guy.
I agree.
He's carrying a subpar team overall, right? You look at their roster on the whole, that is not a great roster, right? That is not one of the 5, maybe 10, maybe even 10 best rosters. When you look at the offensive line, their interior offensive line is one of the worst in the league. That is a bad thing for a quarterback, especially coming back off a knee injury.
Yeah, and that's where, last week we were having the discussion, and Flint brought it up where, they should have drafted Sewell out of Oregon and everything else. And, we addressed it last year, to where, Cincinnati needs to protect their quarterback.
Yep. And what's funny, though, about that whole thing, too, is like their tackles haven't been the problem, right? They're not great tackles, but the problem for them has really been that pressure up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The center and the 2 guards are just not good. They need to build inside out on that offensive line this offseason for sure. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball, and they've got some pieces. Hendrickson's good. Jesse Bates is good.
Yeah, you said it right. They
don't have that elite defense. They don't have an elite unit really on that defense. Even you can't say the defensive line is elite. They have one elite pass rusher. Can't say the DBs are elite. They've got an elite safety, and it's just guys outside of that. But the big thing that I want to say about Tiger King is Jesse Bates said it. There's guys, veterans in this league are coming to Cincinnati, fucking Cincinnati, Ohio. And no offense to fans out there that live in Cincinnati, but it's not a desirable place to go as a professional. And guys are choosing to go there. And there's one reason why they're choosing to go there. And it's a guy in his 2nd fucking year. A guy who didn't even play his full rookie season. Mm-hmm. That speaks volumes to what guys around the league think of Joe Burrow. Guys in that locker room think of him. And that goes a long way to taking these guys that are kind of jags, right? Just another guy, and getting them to gel and play above their level because they're a team. And that's what Cincinnati really is right now.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Aaron, that's a good question, right? I think when you talk about elite, you are talking about guys that have done it over maybe 3, 5, 6, 7 years, right? It's hard to break that elite status early. I think Burrow is the closest of the young guys. You're talking about guys in their 3rd, 4th season. I know Herbert's got the big arm and the stats to show, and he won Rookie of the Year, but they don't win. And there's something there with that team that keeps holding them back in these tight games that doesn't happen with the Bengals. The Bengals win those tight games. The Bengals make those plays. The quarterback makes those plays when the game's on the line. We saw it this weekend, right? We saw it last weekend. We've seen it all throughout this season. So I think that's what separates him from Herbert. But I do think, and Stove, I'd be curious to hear your opinion, but I think elite is when you're talking about somebody who's done it for 3, 4, 5 years, because we've seen guys that were flashes in the past. Ryan Tannehill had a fucking unbelievable year in 2020, and he's not an elite quarterback.
So it's an interesting question. I like the question, and a quarterback comes to mind when we're talking about elite and then stats and championship. Okay. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
To me, he is an elite quarterback / competitor. He definitely doesn't have the stats or the championships to prove it. But what he brings to the table each and every week, without him, Las Vegas, they're nowhere even close to sniffing the playoffs this year at all. But it's that mindset, that mentality that he brings, that work ethic that he brings each and every week that sets him above some of the rest of those guys that maybe have the better stats and championships.
Yeah, and I think you put it right. I don't know that anybody would lump Derek Carr in elite status based solely on his stats, right? But that dude is an elite level competitor. He's gritty. I don't know that there's a grittier quarterback in the league. The dude lays it all out on the line. And I go back and forth a lot. I've got a Raiders fan that we're sort of kind of friends, kind of associates. But
You're not friends.
Right. We're kind of buddies, but we argue a lot about sports. That's our common ground. So we talk about Derek Carr a lot, and he hates it because he's a Raiders fan. And he says, he sucks. I see all these other guys. And then he starts talking about like Mahomes, right? Mahomes does this, Mahomes does that. Yeah, there's one of him, right? Aaron Rodgers does this, there's one of him. Mm-hmm. So like every team in the league wants Mahomes and they want Rodgers, but you can't. And it's, as a Washington football fan, I can tell you,
I'll take Derek Carr.
The fucking grass is not always greener on the other side, buddy. Don't fucking disregard what you've got in house because we're dealing with it right now. We can't find a quarterback, and our old quarterback's up in Minnesota putting up elite stats, right? Yeah. He may not win the games and all that, and we can have our argument about Cousins. We won't get into that. But he's putting up top 5, top 7, top 8 stats in the league every single year, and we had that guy, and we let him go because we thought we could do better. It ain't always the case, buddy. I can tell you, as fucking sitting in the cockpit of a plane that's going down every week because we don't have a quarterback, you don't want to just disregard guys like that, man. Yeah, Aaron, elite quarterbacks, absolutely. Look at Rodgers.
Absolutely.
Right? For years, he elevated bad rosters in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Brady carried really bad offensive rosters. They had really good defense.
They had good defensive, yeah.
He carried really bad offensive rosters. So that's absolutely right, Aaron. Absolutely. To make guys around him better, to make teams around him better. All right, so let's circle back to the Kansas City-Cincinnati game. I want to talk about this 21-3. 21-3. And I don't know how much stock you usually put in like things like momentum, right? Mm-hmm. I saw a completely different Kansas City team when they got stopped at the goal line at the end of the first half. It felt like they come out in the second half and were like, ooh, that sucks. And Patty Mahomes was like lobbying Andy Reid to stay on the field and get a touchdown. And I think they just felt invincible. And when that happened, they were a different team in the second half, man.
Well, you would think you are invincible with the players that you have.
They were just going down the field.
They were. Patty Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, running back, McKinnon. Yeah, like they were early on. They like that run game. They were gashing Cincinnati.
Yep.
Kelsey and Hill on down the middle, down the outside. Like those guys were just getting open. Like whenever they wanted to, like there was no stopping them. It seemed like, but yeah, like, so I'm watching it and it's 21-3. Cincinnati, they score. They stop Kansas City there. And it just, I was shocked that they were going for it with 5 seconds left. I really was. And my buddy OJ was over, the big Bengals fan, and we were like, whoa, they're going for it. Like, and we were both saying, need to stop them here. Like, you can't have a touchdown. No. Can't have a touchdown. And so I'm thinking, in my mind, you're at the 1 yard line. Okay. It was really from the 1 yard line. It wasn't from, the half yard line or whatnot. So I figured
you had all of a yard to go.
Yes. So I either figured something right up the middle, real quick, like with McKinney. If you don't get it, call. I think, did they have a timeout?
They still had a timeout too.
That's right. They had one timeout left. So if you don't get it with McKinnon, call timeout real quick. Okay. If you don't go to a run, you do a quick slant or a pick play, basically.
In the end zone, right?
It has to be in the end zone.
You can't throw the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Even with Tyreek Hill, man. Like at the goal line, you're throwing the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I just don't. Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. Like everything flipped at that moment. Kansas City just, you could see it just felt like the soul drained out of them.
Yeah.
But then they win the toss. They win the toss in overtime, and I think most fans have to feel like Patty's going to figure it out, right? And they're going to go down, they're going to score a touchdown, and we're going to have to deal with, the whole overtime rules, etc. Yeah.
Dave. Yeah, I mean,
man.
Now they definitely forgot they abandoned the run completely. Yes, definitely agree. On the passing side of the game,
Mahomes was a different quarterback.
Mahomes was different that second half too. Like there were some throws there that he should have had. There were also some drop passes.
They started getting pressure on him too.
They finally did. They were not. Yeah.
And trying to just play that kind of catch defense where you're gonna make a mistake on 12, 15 play drives, and they didn't. But they started turning the pressure up in the second half too. And we saw Trey Hendrickson really assert himself in that second half. A couple of times he chased Mahomes all over. I mean, the bad sack, Butker ended up making the field goal, but the bad sack that Mahomes took, Hendrickson chased him down, and like it was such a just a drastic change. It was unbelievable. It felt like Kansas City was running away.
Yep.
Since he was shell shocked. But man, you have to tip it to that entire coaching staff, turning things around at halftime, and the Bengals players just not quitting, because it's easy to quit in that scenario.
It is. Man. Yeah, it is, and especially on the road in Arrowhead. I mean, that crowd was
bananas,
jumping. I mean, and I've been there before for a playoff game, but I don't think it. I mean, it was. First, I think it was a wild card weekend game, so I don't think it was as loud as it was this past weekend.
That stadium is next level loud.
It is. It really is.
Crazy.
It's definitely a tale of two different halves by two different teams. I mean, it
seemed like Andy Reid coached a little scared in the second half too, which was surprising to me, because he's not usually that guy. He doesn't usually turn it off like that. So it, on a lot of levels, a very, very confusing second half. But the Bengals they said, you guys do whatever you want. We're just going to continue to matriculate the ball down the field. And Joey B, and he started finding Chase in the second half. But I'll tell you, the unsung hero of that game, I know people probably have been talking about him. It's been mentioned a few times on some of the Talking Head shows, but like, T fucking Higgins, man.
T Higgins
getting open, having 9 catches, 105 yards, and really moving the chains on a good number of those catches, keeping drives alive. I can't tell you how many times I remember seeing 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, and T Higgins catches a ball for 8-9 yards. It moves the chains, right? Hey. And that's a big fucking deal in a game like this, where you're just trying to claw at something to get some momentum going. And to be able to keep drives alive like that, that was a big deal.
You say Higgins, I say Mixon as well.
Oh yeah, Mixon, absolutely. His ability to continue when they were down by 18 to continue to gash them a bit in the running game, especially in the second half. He started to assert himself, made a couple of plays in the passing game too, for sure. He had a big game.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But man, So let's stay with the game real quick, and let's go to the overtime, because this was a big deal the week prior. Okay. So now you have the overtime, and we saw it the week prior with Kansas City and Buffalo, where Kansas City won the toss. They went down and scored a touchdown, and first touchdown wins. And so they won the toss, and you could see Burrow on the sideline, his facial expression, like, and so then you're like, okay, is this going to be 2 weeks in a row where we're in overtime and you don't have Josh Allen or Joey Burrow touch the ball in overtime to give their teams a chance?
That would have been crazy.
It would have been crazy. It would have been
crazier though. Mahomes threw 3 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He threw 3 interceptions. One was flat out dropped. The other one, if the defender had played the ball instead of the man, would have picked it off. And then finally, the ball got tipped and it got picked off. Like, Mahomes looked like a trash can in overtime, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if he was just thinking, this is a done deal. We're gonna go down and score, but it ain't working like that, bro. You can't make those kinds of mistakes. And honestly, he threw 3 balls that should have been picked. Well, and if Eli Apple picks that one off, the second one, he walks into the fucking end zone.
Yes. Oh my God. That was, I can't believe he missed that.
When he dropped that, I was like, oh man, that's gonna break their backs. Yeah. Like, that's a walk-in touchdown.
But you said it earlier though. Second half, they got pressure on Mahomes.
Yep.
And that was key because first half of the game, he was just standing. He had all the time back there. It was crazy how much time he had.
Yeah, David, I mean, you're right. Hindsight's 20/20, but in the moment, I was saying take the field goal. You go up 3 full touchdowns, like 18 points, and they got a field goal. They would have won the game on that Butker field goal if everything played out exactly the same. It doesn't necessarily mean everything does play out the same, but I feel like you have to take the points there, even with all that momentum.
Take the points.
Like, holy cow, I couldn't believe that.
Because you were getting the ball back, too, at the start of the second half.
You could have double dipped, even if you kicked 2 field goals. Like, you're up 27-3 at that point. Like, I didn't understand it. It's like the John Harbaugh thing, right? Where you want to have confidence in your guy. And we've seen them win games, giving it to Lamar Jackson, and we've seen them lose games, giving it to Lamar Jackson. Here, I think Andy Reid, when Mahomes lobbied and said one more, like, fine, but you got to be in his headset saying, like, hey, buddy, this has to go to the end zone. We have to get points out of this. We can't come out of this with no points. And I believe they had a timeout. I'm pretty confident they had a timeout, but still, they had 5 seconds. That's enough to throw, like you said, a quick slant into the end zone or a pick play, something that runs 3-4 seconds off the clock and the clock stops. I just didn't understand the play call. And then the decision by Mahomes to throw the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Trust your guys, but that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Even in the moment, it was a tough one.
Yeah. No, it really was. And so real quick, and the picture that you sent in the group messaging after that game, I was like, are you serious right now? Like, really? And it was the time on the clock when that interception happened was 13
seconds into overtime.
I was like,
13 seconds
you serious, Clark? And I didn't believe you. I had to go back and look at it.
Yep.
I really did not believe you.
I had to look at it when I saw the meme. I was like, "There's no way somebody photoshopped that."
Exactly.
Shit. I went back and I looked. It sure as fucking shit.
Yeah.
13 seconds on the clock when the DB caught the ball because it got tipped.
Yeah.
It got tipped and maybe burned another second, and it's such like just symmetry. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. 13 seconds to win one.
Jeez.
13 seconds to lose one. It's wild. It's wild. Last point about this game. I cannot get over Evan McPherson, man. A rookie kicker is just ice water in his fucking veins. 12 for 12 in the playoffs. The week prior, he says, "Welp, I guess we're going to the AFC Championship game." And it was like a 52-yard field goal. And he had a chip shot. And then this week, he's just fucking nailing them, and then kicks the game winner in overtime. He's 2 away from tying Vinatieri. He's got a single postseason record.
He's got 40
field goals.
Okay, so he's got 40 points.
Yeah,
scored right now so far this postseason. So, I haven't seen the interview, but my buddy was telling me about it. The McAfee one, where he was basically, he was like, he
calling his shot.
Pat has the Colts ball there that the
Vinatieri's records.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, I'll beat that.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to break, he says.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I can't get over it, man. Like, if this was tailgate trash talk, this dude's going in the Hall of Fame.
Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I love that energy, man. That is fucking stone cold energy. Love that, dude. I never thought a kicker could possibly be like one of, if not the most popular players on a team, but he's fucking doing it, buddy.
He's one of them.
All right, let's move on to the nightcap. Another phenomenal game. Sean McVay, the San Francisco 49ers are his kryptonite. They're out 17-7 to start the fourth quarter. Rams scored first. Niners came back and scored, but then we had a little bit of a dead zone for the Rams for about 2.5 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth quarter starts and they're down 17-7. And suddenly they start getting things going. Stafford's finding Beckham, Stafford's finding Kupp, and they're really starting to move the ball. And then we get down the stretch and the Rams take the lead, and Jimmy G makes a bonehead play after having a great 3 3/4 of a game. Really, like the last play of the game was really the pockmark for Jimmy G. And
that may not have all been on him.
Oh, it wasn't. He's being sacked, and there's no.
But at the same time, take the sack.
Yeah,
take the sack and still fight to play another play. But yeah, we were all four of us were actually talking on during this game. So it was nice to hear everyone else's comments. And someone mentioned, I think it either was you or Flint, that McVay was kind of lost out there, or was just kind of going through the motions, but kind of scared at the play calling.
Yeah.
In a way. And you could definitely see that. And then some of the challenges that he did. Yeah, exactly. And it was just like, why? Like that's clear as day. Like your guys have, all this access to look at the footage and everything else. Like it just made no sense why you were reaching for that,
burning timeouts too.
Yeah. Like it definitely weren't doing yourself any favors if, for when it came time for, the fourth quarter and under 2 minutes or whatnot. But you said it as well too, on two different players. Deebo Samuel, cheat code, and Cooper Kupp.
He's uncoverable, man.
We said this, I think, almost on for every single game this postseason, whether it's Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. Like, how are these defenses not covering these guys?
Yeah. It is crazy to see guys like Cooper Kupp still get open, and maybe you have to play your defense and things happen that way. I know Cooper Kupp is an elite route runner in the league. He might be the best route runner in the league, right? There's a couple of guys that can kind of lay a claim to that as well. But Cooper Kupp, I think, is probably the best route runner in the league. And he's so deceptively fast. Too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the skin tone or because he's tall, right? A lot of tall guys don't run the way he does, especially in close spaces. Like guys that are 6'2" are not shifty like that. You see guys like Edelman and, Tyreek Hill who are 5'10", 5'11". Tyreek Hill might be 5'6", right? Yeah. But those guys are the ones that are shifty. You don't see 6'2" guys that are just beat you in a phone booth quick. And that's what he is. And then Deebo, you mentioned Deebo, like, dude, he's a running back, wide receiver, true running back, wide receiver hybrid, because you can't fucking tackle that guy when he's got the ball. He's a high level wide receiver.
Yeah, too. He amazed me, and this was the time that I kind of watched him more than I had all season. But it just amazed me. I mean, they just threw a flat out screen pass out to him out there in the flats, and already he had two guys on him. But then 9 yards down the road is when they finally tackle him. It's just like
he's just dragging dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were a couple times where he's off balance too, getting hit and still keeping his balance and still moving the ball forward. It's so, yeah, I mean, he had one hell of a year this year. And I think really cemented it the last couple games of the season and then in the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see what San Fran does, especially, at the quarterback position. But with Deebo, I think he's this will be going into year 3
3 or 4.
maybe.
I think 3. I think you're right.
So yeah, I think a restructure is gonna be due in that guy's future for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna have to lock him up. He's a fucking playmaker, man.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to kind of talk about too, and I'm not going to talk about this in terms of the Super Bowl, but like what we saw from McVay against the Patriots a couple of years ago is still his bugaboo. He's not a very good in-game adjustments coach. He doesn't make adjustments on the fly, and Andy kind of hit it on the head with the way he said it. We were all kind of talking about it and talking around it, but the way he said it is like the Rams are just doing what they do. And that is kind of just in a nutshell, right? When you're winning, it's, oh yeah, we're asserting our will and we're doing what we want to do. But when you're losing and you're not making adjustments, like it's, yeah, these guys are just still trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like the definition of insanity, right? You do the same thing over and over and expect a fucking different outcome. And that, to me, Sean McVay is a genius, right? And there's no disputing that. The dude knows the ins and outs of every position on the field and the ins and outs of offense like nobody's business. But he is not a great in-game coach. And that was something we said about Andy Reid for a long time too.
Well, and it surprises me because if you and you hit it too, to where the dude is so knowledgeable. I saw an interview where they were asking him questions
about specific plays
and players back when he was coaching for Washington.
Yeah.
Like back in
what? You like that game?
Like 2015 or what? And he's like, oh yeah, this happened right here with through blah blah blah.
We were out to Jameson Crowder for 9 yards and a first down, and then Jordan Reed catches a slant pass.
What happened next? What happened next play?
Yeah, like holy shit.
I'm just
what became a meme after that game? Like, oh yeah, that was. Do you like that game? Like,
yeah. Well, and so it baffles me that, and I get, coaches play to their strong suit. Everyone has a weakness. Everyone does. And that it doesn't matter, how smart you are at, certain things. There is going to be a weakness, and I guess that might be his.
Yeah, and what surprises me more about it is like, he learned under one of the best in-game coaches, like Mike Shanahan, for all of his, pre-game, the great run game and the move in the pocket and all that he kind of revolutionized the way that the quarterback and running back positions are played, et cetera, et cetera. Mike Shanahan was one of the best in-game coaches. He could figure out on the fly what you're trying to do against him and make changes, and he didn't need to go into the locker room. Right? Like a lot of coaches have to go into the locker room to make adjustments, and some of them are really good at it. Like a Bill Belichick is really good at making adjustments in the locker room. Mike Shanahan, I saw it in Washington. I watched him do it in Denver. He, in game, on the fly, could identify what was going on and fix whatever was not working for his team. And for McVay to struggle with that so much does surprise me. But I guess it shouldn't surprise me a ton because, like, we see Kyle Shanahan in a lot of games not be able to, like, he's a really good in-game coach, but when things start to go wrong, it just seems like he's not able to stem the tide. And that's probably something that's going to stick with him for a long time because he's now blown a 28-3. He's blown a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, and then a 10-point lead now in the NFC Championship game. When things start to go bad, it just seems like he can't figure out how to dig out of that hole. And that's not a good thing either for a head coach. You've got to be the tent pole. You've got to be the guy that's going to be the rudder for the ship. And it just seems like those two guys struggle with that a bit. So,
yeah. But the other thing I want to take from this game too is Matthew Stafford, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And Flint pointed it out. It was 1 year ago to the day that he was traded to LA, and he got the victory, and he's on to his first Super Bowl. And really, I mean, played 12 seasons with the Lions, 0 playoff victories, 1 year with the Rams, and you got yourself going. Yeah, you got yourself a couple victories and going to the Super Bowl. So I think things are panning out for him quite well, and deservedly so. I mean, a quarterback like that, what he's been through, everything there in Detroit, just classic.
Who would have guessed 5 years ago, 7 years ago, that in 2021, 2022, Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers would have exactly the same number of Super Bowl appearances? Like, that's such a weird dichotomy. Just goes back to, and I know it's not related necessarily to the Rams or anything, but it just goes back to, like, what a wasted opportunity for the Packers. They're going to have Favre and Rodgers for 35 years, and they're going to have 2 Super Bowls and 3 appearances to show for it. It's just unbelievable. But I'm real happy for Stafford. I think we all kind of share that sentiment. We're happy, and Andy's on record as saying, like, Stafford might be his favorite Lion of all time, and that's high praise, because that's a guy that grew up watching Barry Sanders, right? He's a Lions fan because of Barry Sanders. So for Matty Stafford to have won him over, that's a big deal for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into salute to service here, then we'll get to Captain Facts, and then we got a few neat topics to cover after Cap Facts. All right, this week's episode goes out to Sergeant Holly Belinsky. She died March 7th, 2019, serving during Operation Spartan Shield. Belinsky died at age 37. She was from Pinckneyville, Illinois. Her vehicle collided with a civilian commercial truck in Kuwait, moving goods, and a lot of I'm sure calamity going on when moving that. I know moving stuff on ships, it was a lot of calamity, so things can certainly go awry. She was assigned to 657th Transportation Detachment based out of Mount Vernon, Illinois. She was an Army reservist. She was deployed to Camp Arifjan in support of, as said before, Operation Spartan Shield. Her awards include the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Iraqi Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, Army Commendation, Army Good Conduct, and Meritorious Service Medal, among other awards. Sergeant Belinsky, this episode goes out to you. We have the watch. All right, let's try to bring the energy back up here. We'll shift over to Cap Facts. All right, our first Cap Facts this week. This postseason, Stove, has been the best of our lifetime. And we could say our because we're pretty close in age.
Yeah.
And I think Raul's the youngest in the group, but Andy's real close, and Raul's not too far behind us. So has this postseason been the best of our lifetime?
I would say facts on this one. Just with everything, especially the past 2 weeks, with everything going to a walk-off win for each team not this past weekend, but 2 weeks prior. And then this past weekend where, you had a walk-off and then interception at the very end to seal the deal. All close games. And man, we had some games. We had some shootouts, and we had some defensive stands as well. So yeah, I'm going facts.
Yeah, I can't think of another playoffs that has had this much intrigue, this much tension down the stretch. And that's really what makes good football, right? If Washington's not playing, if Dallas isn't playing, like the only thing I really ever want to see is like let's have some good football games, right? And this postseason has delivered, right? And like on a personal level, 91 might be the best playoffs that I really remember. Like I was alive for 87, when Washington beat Denver in the Super Bowl, and I vaguely remember watching the game as like a 3-year-old, sort of. In 91, of course, watching Mark Rippon, but as a totality of a postseason, like this even trumps that, right? For the quality of viewership, the quality of the games being played, you know, for me, even as a Washington fan, like on a personal level, I think this has been the best postseason that I've ever watched. And I can confidently say, I believe for anybody around our age, mid-30s, late 30s, this has been the best postseason of your lifetime, right? So I'm with you. I'm facts. The quality of viewership is really what's been so great. We've got new teams, right? New players in the Super Bowl. The Rams were a few years ago, but like now they got a new quarterback and a lot of new pieces. Joe Burrow obviously bringing Cincy back, first time since the mid 80s. Like it's just been so great with the intrigue, the quality of the games. I'm with you 100% facts. All right, cap or facts? Jimmy G has played his last game in San Francisco. Cowboys fan? Is Aaron a Cowboys fan?
Thought they won in 95.
It would have been the 95 season. That was the Switzer year, I believe. The 96 Super Bowl.
Okay, so that might have been it. Okay, so then, yeah. Yeah, okay. He is. Good job, Aaron. Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Jimmy G's played his last game in San Francisco. Are you buying this, Stove?
Man, I think the writing's on the wall from what everyone's been saying. I know he's going against the cap hit here. I think 28, 30 mil. Somewhere around that.
I think. Okay. Like 25.8 or something like that.
Truthfully, it's going to be facts, but I don't see why it should be. If that, and the reason why I say that is the games that Trey Lance played.
I think we're going to agree completely on this.
I don't,
not to spoil my choice, but
yeah, he's not as bad as Jordan Love, but to me, it's kind of a similar situation here. And I think you are doing your team a disservice by getting rid of Jimmy G and going with Trey Lance. But that's my opinion. But for this certain question, I'm going to say facts.
We are in lockstep on this. I think it's facts. I don't think it should be facts. I think Jimmy G gets a lot of flack for things that are out of his control in a lot of these games that San Francisco has lost or blown leads. I also think that Jimmy G does have a propensity to save his mistakes for the worst fucking possible moments, right? Like, I just think he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but when he does make a mistake, it's just in the worst possible moment, and it's easy for fans for the Niners to just point out those glaring mistakes that happen in the worst moments. This is a good one too.
This is.
Are they good enough next year to make a run in the year after that? Because Stafford's only in year 12. Well, he's only in year 13. Sorry, but he's got 5 good years left, I think.
Didn't we do a cap or facts with this question?
I posed it and said that they would make a deep run and it wouldn't be this year, and I was fucking dead wrong.
Yeah,
I was dead wrong to propose it, and I said it was facts.
Yeah,
so I was dead wrong.
Why don't you go ahead and take the reins on this one?
I am going to say, if they don't win it this year, I'm going to say cap, because it's very hard to get back. And you can ask a lot of quarterbacks who have lost a Super Bowl how much it eats at them to try to get back. Dan Marino, he went to the Super Bowl in his second year in the league and then never sniffed it again. So despite me saying 8 weeks ago that they would make a deep run, not this year, but in another year, I'm going to say cap, because I started to look at where they're at too. They're going to lose a lot of Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey. They can't keep a lot of these guys after this year. Beckham's not going to play on this incentive-laden deal that he's got this year. So I'm going to say cap only because I think it's going to be hard to keep the band together. What about you?
I'm going to go facts on this one. And I think it might be something along the lines of the guys that you just mentioned, they take a pay cut.
That would be the X factor. Yeah. If they can get those guys to do that for sure, I think that's a great way for them to
it's almost like, you know, the guys that are wanting to go play in Cincy with Burrow. Okay. I think Stafford is that type of guy in Los Angeles. And then with a coach like McVay, just his demeanor with the players and everything else like that. Then you have Aaron Donald, your defensive leader. And you have Jalen Ramsey over there as well too. You brought him in. Now you have Von Miller, who's a veteran. I think there's a lot of, and I know money talks and everything else, but there's also something to be said in Odell Beckham. He's been a lifelong Rams fan.
Yeah.
So he's playing for the team that he grew up loving. There's a lot to be said for playing with guys that you love. You know, there's guys that you love, and then there's guys that you truly love playing with. And it could be one of these things to where Aaron Donald, Ramsey, Von Miller, they have that cohesiveness, that brotherly love, and, you know, they keep that core together.
Yeah, if that's the case, for sure, I think that they've got a pretty big window if they can do that, because that's a lot of talent if they can keep it together. I want to make one last quick point about the Niners, and then I want to look at David Evans' question, because we do a lot of talking about officiating on this show. Marcus Spears actually proposed a kind of wild scenario, but it makes sense the more I thought about it afterwards. On NFL Live today, he was talking about the Niners and them. Basically, it's kind of a done deal, right? That they're going to move on from Jimmy G. He said, go after Aaron Rodgers. If you're really serious about winning a Super Bowl in San Francisco, go fucking get that guy.
Go get the guy that you passed up on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. For Alex Smith. Now you can mend fences, right? Be the guys that mend fences. He said that. And I think if you put Aaron Rodgers on that roster, if they can keep that roster together with his pay, that would be a very dangerous roster. I just found that very interesting that Marcus Spears brought that up.
So
it would take a lot of draft capital, and they already spent a bunch on Trey Lance last year.
So real quick, because I know Green Bay is not going to let go of Devontae Adams. They're going to franchise tag him, whatever. I don't see him going to San Francisco just because Aaron Rodgers is a dick when it comes to.
He holds a grudge, man.
Yes.
He holds a fucking grudge.
Exactly. But
that whole regime ain't even around anymore, and he still hates the 49ers.
Yes. But hear me out. And going along these lines here, they trade for him. You sign him, you sign Debo, and then you trade Trey Lance and whoever else and bring over Devontae Adams.
Yeah. There's been some kind of rumblings about a possible franchise and trade and package deal with Rodgers for Devontae Adams. I don't know if any team can really make that work, but if a team can, like that's a dangerous combination to add to a roster for sure.
Yeah.
Raul, buddy, how you doing? Good to see you.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Sorry I'm late.
What do you think about Jimmy G? Is he done in San Francisco?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah, there's way too many teams out there that need a quarterback that are going to pay Jimmy G handsomely to do so. So it's going to happen.
I think I know where he goes because I think it's the most Ron Rivera thing to do to go get a veteran quarterback. I think he ends up in Washington, to be honest. And I think it'll be a second and a fourth or something like that might escalate. I do think Ron's
Is Jimmy G considered a veteran now? Like, is that where we're at with Jimmy G?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a safe pick, a veteran pick. Like I was telling Stove earlier, right before you jumped on it, like Jimmy G doesn't make a lot of mistakes. The mistakes he makes are very glaring because of the time and the situation that he makes them. And he's a guy that I think Ron Rivera can get behind. Alex Smith, very much like an Alex Smith, safe with the ball, don't turn it over, that sort of thing. So he can move. You know, Ron's already said he wants a guy that can move to avoid the pass rushers in the NFC East, and you know, a guy that can get the ball out to receivers. So, all right, I want to bring up David Evans' question here because we talk a lot about officials. We talk a ton about officials on this show, and I am verbally, I am textually on the record as saying this has been a fucking horrendous performance throughout the play, and it's not one crew. It's fucking every crew from every game, it seems. There's just been some sort of ridiculous nonsense that goes on in these games, and I don't know how to explain it because there's a lot of veteran crews this year too, crews that have been good in the past that have just thrown up on themselves. And David brings up talking about games being rigged, directed by the hands of Vegas, big names comparing to WWE. There's a lot of situations where things will happen that you're like, man, it's just like it feels targeted. It feels maybe directed. Raul, what do you think? Is there any meddling going on here, or is it just sloppy?
I think there's solid arguments for both. I think that there's definitely some big stage shit that happens. It just does. I think even at the most convenient level of what we've talked about and what you've bitched about all season, Cowboys getting favorable calls, you know, but we see that in every fucking sport, man. You know what I mean? We see it in basketball. We see it in every sport in existence. There are teams that just get favored on calls. LeBron James, you know, like there's so many fucking people on earth. Ronaldo, you can say the same thing. Messi, all the greats, all the everybody's have always had breaks. Tom Brady, Patriots.
You're absolutely right. It's not unique to the NFL.
Right. So as far as the meddling is concerned, I think that the extent of it only goes as far as what's already known, like the stereotypes of who already gets the calls. Now, I think there's also, at minimum, without putting a tinfoil hat on, we're seeing egregiously missed calls, right? And so that alone requires accountability and analysis, right? There has to be mitigating measures, right? We've got to get to that point where we can correct this. And so that means you either visit the referees themselves individually or as a team, and you have to hold these guys accountable. These guys are obviously not going to catch everything. Human error is always going to be a real thing, but these fucking calls, dude.
Just get the easy shit right.
Dude, don't you dare miss a helmet to helmet if you're right in front of it. You know what I mean? And we've seen it. We have seen it every fucking game. There's something that happens. Blatantly missed holding calls, you know, blatantly missed pass interference, just all in an effort to keep this game going. The entertainment value and the tinfoil hat theory to keep that alive is definitely real. Like I think there's a solid theory. I'm not 100% on board with it, but I do believe that at minimum, the easiest fix to this is start holding the refs accountable and fuck the bullshit with the business and the unions and this and that. Like none of that. Like there needs to be accountability. It needs to be a mutual. They've got to earn it. Period.
For sure. Stope?
This is the most elite level. Come on.
You got your tinfoil hat on?
No, totally agree with what Raul said there. Accountability. And we've been preaching it all fucking year long. And I don't think there's been 1 week that we have not talked about it. And
many damn Ks or thanks Haskins.
Fantastic, exactly. And
I dedicated one damn K for some good calls.
But it's one of those things where, to me, the sport has gotten soft with some of the play calling, or I'm sorry, some of the officiating and some of the rules directed at a certain position or positions and everything else. I get it. You're trying to protect people, this and that. Okay. I'm also all for letting the guys play though, as well. You know, early on in that game, we saw some back and forth hand hand gestures, hand movements with the wide receivers, defensive backs with the Cincinnati KC game. I'm all for it if you're going to let them play it out. Don't not call it here and then call, a ticky-tack one over here. You know what I mean? Be fucking consistent throughout the whole thing. If you're going to let them play, awesome. Fucking let them play. I'm all for that, because I think that's what the sport is. I think we need more of that and less of the penalties. But to your point, though, too, it has definitely gotten out of hand to where really blatant stuff hasn't gotten called, and very minimal shit gets called, and there is no accountability. Now, I think they just, was it the wild card weekend? That set of refs.
Yeah, they weren't coming back.
They weren't coming back.
They didn't blow a whistle on a play, and then they.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the out of bounds, the Bengals game. Yeah. So just the accountability of the referees throughout the whole entire NFL season so far has been non-existent.
So before we get to you, Gary, I wanna just throw this idea out before I preface here, but there's a rules committee, is there not? Like there's a rules committee. Okay, so why not hold that rules committee or officiating committee accountable, or hold those officials are accountable to the rules committee, right? And this creates you made the call. What call did you stand by? You stood by this call. Was it actually this? Did it meet the criteria all in all? And sure, again, human error taken into account, but once you exceed that margin, it's just about the officiating and the reporting of that officiating after the fact. That way you can now document and hold these guys accountable. And that to me is the easiest fix that will just truly even out the herd, right?
So they are graded. They are graded every week. They are graded.
And that's how you get. That's how you get postseason games. Yeah, same with baseball.
I just think that there's
right, but I'm not talking about grade. I'm talking about accountability, penalized, and more so than just grade appearances. I'm talking like, we're talking fucking suspension, something. There's strikes.
You're talking like fines in the form of missed calls or calls that happened that shouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I think I can get behind stuff like that, especially when it comes to like the player safety ones. Raul mentioned the helmet to helmet ones. Like missing those is, I know football is a very bang sport, high speed, a lot of collisions, et cetera. But like when you're standing behind Tom Brady and Von Miller hits him in the chin and he starts bleeding, you fucked up. Don't then throw a flag for unsportsmanlike conduct to compound the fucking issue, Sean Hockley. You fucking piece of shit. Like that's the worst, man. Like,
I'll raise you one and say safety penalties and anything inside the final 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, the final 2 minutes has to be a big deal. But so to kind of address David's question, right? I won't say games are rigged because I can't imagine the complexities of trying to rig a football game, right? Like basketball, when there was points shaving and stuff, guys would just like dribble and travel and foul and miss shots, and like that sort of stuff is kind of easy to do. It's especially if you're a guy that handles the ball all the time, you're the point guard, etc. Right? Football, it's hard to rig a football game because so many things, the ball moves at crazy speed, and so many things have to go right, wrong, etc. for things to happen that way. But what I do believe is the real root of the problem here is it's targeted officiating. And if you want to influence the outcome of a game, we've talked about targeted officiating several times on this show. But if you want to influence the outcome of a game, just wait for 3rd and 15 and then an incomplete pass and you throw a holding flag on the defense, right? Automatic first down on 3rd and 15. Well, guess what happened on both 2nd down and 1st down? Defensive holding, but you didn't call it. You can't pick and choose when you call it. But that's how you get these sorts of things to influence the outcomes of games. And I have a brother who's a Cowboys fan who in private moments will admit that the Cowboys get favorable officiating. But when he's trolling in front of other people, he will share the fact that the Cowboys finished with like the 3rd most penalties in the league and like they have this weird metric that like, oh, their penalties didn't influence the outcome of a game. I challenge you to look at how many times a third down call was either made incorrectly or missed, and look at that, because you have to look at it from the objective point of view, because the raw numbers of penalties do not show the impacts of games. And I mentioned that because I just brought up 3rd and 15, you throw a ticky-tack holding or a ticky-tack illegal contact, which is what happened early in the Kansas City-Cincinnati game. Stove, you alluded to it. Kansas City held and hugged receivers in the end zone with the ball in the air on consecutive plays inside the 10-yard line. No call. Then we go back to the other side of the field, and it's 3rd and 11, and Mahomes throws a pass into the fucking stands, and there's a fucking flag on Eli Apple, who didn't really even touch Tyreek Hill. They made incidental contact, and there's a fucking flag that gets him an automatic first down. So, like, that sort of shit is really what blows my mind, is as fans to be able to just understand that the raw numbers are not what influences the outcomes of games. David, to answer your question, yes, I do think there is some influence when it comes to that, because I think the NFL wants certain teams to prosper because of ratings. LA's hosting the Super Bowl this year. Do you think that had nothing to do with the fact that the Rams got really favorable officiating throughout that entire game? I challenge you to prove it to me, because I guarantee you that conversation went on in the rules committee. That conversation went on in the front offices. It's just the reality of it. The Cowboys moved the needle. The Patriots moved the needle for a long time. The Rams are moving the needle this year. That has an effect on the NFL and the way they officiate these games.
I think there's too many already.
Yeah.
It depends on what kind of official you add to, right? Because they've already tried to add a replay official, and it slowed the game down. We get the end of a play, they won't even blow the whistle anymore. They're just waiting for the guy upstairs to tell them what's going on with the play. It's so weird. The game has become very choppy. I don't know if another official changes. I just think they, as Raul put it, you have to hold them accountable.
It's time to go to robots, dude.
Yeah, fucking baseball is.
It's time. Just remote audits. Fuck it.
All right. Waxed poetically about officials here. Now, let's move on to Josh McDaniels, recently hired GM, following him, right? One guy from the front office of out there in One Patriots Way, headed to Las Vegas. Will the Patriot Way raise Derek Carr's game and make the Raiders contenders in the AFC and the NFL? Stove, let's start with you.
Well, Derek Carr has already been a contender. He's already one of those guys that just gets it. So, yes, they will definitely be contenders. Facts.
Like it. Raul, you buying the Patriot Way in Vegas?
Facts, yeah, and it's pure, like, Derek Carr's already there. It's just this is gonna build something around Derek Carr, and it's overdue. And investing in that front line and investing in some good receiving threats, preferably some that don't get speeding tickets. Yeah.
I like it. I'm facts with this, and I think I'm going to agree with you guys. I think it's going to push them higher, right? I think Vegas is already, with Derek Carr under center, already a formidable team. So I'm with you. Josh McDaniels showed up to his press conference, so that's already a win.
Oh, did
right?
he?
Yeah, he did show up to his press conference. So
hey,
we're not going to have another
right direction.
We're not going to have another Indianapolis debacle. So we're off to a good start in Vegas with Josh McDaniels.
I wonder what the betting line on that one was.
Oh my god!
Oh, dude, there was.
They had a prop somewhere.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, they did.
There's a line. That was my favorite part of that. There was a line, and everybody knew there was.
Yep.
Dead ass.
All right. Last capper facts here.
Facts, dude.
The news today, I think, contributes to this, right?
Brian motherfucking, like, come on, dude.
And this was
the relevant
before
facts.
today's news.
Yeah, you posed this before the Flores news.
This was a fucking clown show, dude. It is absolute soup sandwich, just a bag of dicks, dude.
Stove, cat facts.
Hey, Raul took every single word out of my mouth. So
we're 3 for 3. So let's move on. Let's talk about Flores. All right. I think the elephant in the room is like, he's right. And we've known it forever. And we've talked about it. The Rooney Rule is shit. The Rooney Rule doesn't do what the Rooney Rule was intended to do. Great in thought, awful in execution. We get the token interview every year for all of these teams. And of all people to blow the whistle on this fucking thing, Bill Belichick, who can't figure out technology, sends a fucking reply all, the equivalent of a reply all on an office email, and sends the fucking text message to the wrong guy and congratulates him on the New York Giants head coaching job. And Brian Flores is like,
hey, honestly,
my interview's on Friday, bro. Like, I haven't even interviewed yet.
This seems like the most Bill Belichick thing like that I could even fucking imagine, because I promise you his response whenever he saw it, and he was just like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Whoops. And then he's going to go fucking hit QB practice. Like practice film. Like he's just going to go do that.
So what are your thoughts here, man? How fucking ridiculous is this whole coaching hiring debacle?
So I'm 2 parts here, okay? And it has to do with college level too, and NFL, okay? Because you got one coach that is in college right now who's being fucking interviewed tomorrow on National fucking Signing Day. So where the fuck are your recruits going to be? If you didn't sign them during the early signing period, how many recruits are you going to have signed tomorrow? And you're out interviewing with the fucking Minnesota Vikings. Like, I'm not going there. I'm definitely not going there just because of your Harbaugh, but, I'm definitely not going there now. But 2, I agree with the NFL and what they did this year as far as opening up the interviewing process for coaches that were still in the postseason, a couple weeks earlier or whatever they did. I agree with that. I think that should have been addressed earlier in the previous years, earlier than when it was, just for the fact that, everyone kept on wanting to interview Bellamy or whatever. Yeah. And he was always in the postseason. So that's why, some people were saying he was getting passed up on was because they needed to make decisions and they were still in the playoffs or they were in the Super Bowl, whatever.
What's their excuse this year?
I've said it, there has to be something with his interviewing process. That's the only way I can figure out that he is not a fucking head coach at somewhere. Like, I do not get it, why he's not a head coach. I don't get it.
Let's call Brian Flores and ask him why.
The whole, like, Marvin Lewis is still out there. I don't know. And I don't know if it's, some of these guys, they're bringing in, college guys, younger guys with maybe different ideas and everything else. But shit, like, what are you saying about experience and like coaching experience and everything for some of these guys that have been doing it for fucking their whole lives? Their coaching resume. I mean, doesn't that speak volumes for itself or anything?
I think we're going to see Andrew Luck become a head coach. I think this is just the kind of wild shit we're going to see in the future.
Can you fucking imagine?
Yeah,
Andrew,
I fucking could.
Man.
Could you not?
General Luck.
And I don't like it being a race thing. Like, I think that that is, to me, that gets blown out of proportion so many times on so many different levels. But when you have a fucking rule that involves race, like, that rule is a fucking joke. Like, it needs to be gone because it doesn't do anyone justice whatsoever. Not one bit. I'm at a loss for words and on the whole fucking coaching thing, because I hope to God Flores is telling the truth here, because I like him as a coach. I hope he is telling the truth, and I hope he brings the fucking house down on fucking Roger Goodell and the fucking NFL on this.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to see fucking Olympus is falling here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. And I think, you know, some of the things you were saying, right? We've seen this in the past where it's like, well, this guy's still in the playoffs, or well, this guy, you know, didn't interview well, or well, this guy's got more experience. And then we go and we see guys like Brandon Staley get hired in you know, Los Angeles with the Chargers. He's never had any experience, was a okay as fuck defensive coordinator. And you just see these guys that get hired, like Matt LaFleur got hired up in Green Bay and he had minimal experience. So it's time to stop saying like, well, there's reasons why they do this, and just start calling a spade a spade. And I think that's what Flores is trying to point out, is like, we get treated differently. And some of the evidence that he's presenting is not necessarily evidence of like racial bias. It's evidence of this whole hiring process is fucked. When you talk about guys like John Elway showing up to a fucking interview with Brian Flores in 2019, drunk out of his mind, hung over, like, it's clear that he wasn't taking it seriously to come in and interview Brian Flores anyway. It was just a token interview. And I think that's some of the stuff that we're going to see come out of this, is these conversations about the culture, right? The culture of how this hiring process goes about, this culture of, are we even doing any diligence in this process? Because Bill Belichick is the fucking head coach and general manager for the New England Patriots. And he knows that Brian Daboll is getting hired by the Giants. And then he's texting Brian Flores, congratulations. Like, that whole process, to me, there's something real fucked at the root level of it. And Mina Kimes put it perfectly earlier today, bringing up NFL Live again. She said, like, it's time for us to stop making excuses for why NFL owners aren't choosing minority coaches and start talking about the reasons that they're doing it. They don't look like them. They don't relate to them. These are old, stodgy white men who grew up when the country was blatantly and overtly racist. Like, that's what they know. And they have all the power, and it's the good old boys club. We got to stop making excuses for why they're not doing this. And they've got to fix the problem. It's systemic. And short of like smacking them on the wrist and saying like, don't do that, like, the NFL needs to start bringing the hammer down on some of these teams. I don't know how they do it. Do you lose picks? Do you sacrifice picks for, you know, these sorts of things? How do you make them want to hire the most qualified guy? Because they're not hiring the most qualified guy. Eric Bieniemy would be a head coach if they were hiring the most qualified guy. Brian Flores would still be the head coach in Miami if they only wanted the most qualified guy. You don't go 29 and fucking 20 in 2 seasons and you're not the most qualified guy, right? So there's a fucking issue, or 19 and 10 or whatever the fuck he went there. But he had winning records with a roster that wasn't very good. And then to hear that like Stephen Ross was incentivizing him with $100,000 to lose games, like, that's so just, that's grimy. It's gross. They've got to get to the root of this shit for sure. No, they don't, Aaron. They may consult them about guys that they're going to interview, but like, these GMs are doing the interviews and the owners are coming in and telling the GMs, this is the guy I want for sure. Like, it's just, it's crazy. It's a bad process. It's ugly, and it's a systemic thing from the bottom floor all the way to the top. All right. Let's move on to a little bit of lighter news. Tom Brady makes it official today. TB12 is no longer bringing that competitive drive, making that competitive commitment, as he put it. So let's kind of go around the horn and talk about two things. First things first, let's talk about the impact that Tom Brady had on the NFL. How is this era of Tom Brady football going to be remembered in 20, 30, 40 years, right? Because Joe Montana is still the guy that won 4 Super Bowls in the 80s, right? What are we going to talk about with Tom Brady and his impact on the NFL? Stove?
Well, for one, you're going to have the tuck rule that got implemented after the Raiders game there. That was truly a Tom Brady rule change there. I also think you're going to have, in a day and age, you compare Montana in the 80s. Now you have Brady here in the early 2000s and 2010s, 2020. But two different eras as far as nutritional value. I think, and I think sports in general has made a ton strides and leaps and bounds in the right direction with that. But I think if someone is wanting to play for as long as they want to, I think Tom Brady is going to be that poster child, so to speak, for that. And just with what he put in his body and didn't put in his body, and then his workout regime and everything else in the off season. I mean, it's totally different than anyone that we've ever seen before. I mean, the dude had his own personal trainer that, was at the, had his own VIP access card into Gillette Stadium, So I think you're going to have that as well. But the other thing too, I think is, and we alluded to it a little bit earlier, is the times where he uplifted that offensive, the offensive play for the Patriots. Defensive wise, they had players. Offensively, they may not have had those key components, those key cogs that you would think that you would need to go on those championship runs. But being the guy that he was, he uplifted everyone around him to play at a championship level. And it may have been the practicing and everything else, the off-season training where he was so demeaning and demanding and everything else that just instituted that with everyone on the team. So for me, it's those three things. I think the last one is definitely going to stand out. And then obviously the nutritional value, for sure. If you're wanting to play at a high level, competitive level for an extended period of time.
Raul?
I think the first thing that's going to happen probably pretty soon is that these scouting ratings are probably going to change their rubric for how they grade people. Just starting at the very fucking beginning.
Yeah.
I think that Brady absolutely revolutionized the self-care aspect of it. And we're seeing it with all kinds of athletes. Obviously, LeBron James being probably one of the most notable, having spent 7 figures a year on his own personal well-being, nutrition, weight training, so on and so forth. I mean, his lifestyle is dictated by people he pays to tell him how to do so. And when you want to operate at the level of being the greatest of all time, they've figured out how to get there. And now that, I mean, it's completely doable by anyone who is willing to put in that time at the basic level, and at the marketing level, at all the aspects of it. I mean, they've created this path that we've never seen before. Tom Brady has created a career path that has never been seen before. And because of that, we're going to see even greater things 10, 15, 20 years from now. But Tom Brady and what he's done similar to the greats before them, the generational talents, the MJ to LeBron, that type of thing. I want to commit and say we'll never see this again, but come on. Like, I mean, this is just the trajectory, you know? But I can say without a doubt, you know, if you, I don't know what a masshole would say, something along the lines of, if you think Brady's not the GOAT, you got a dump in your pants. So,
well done.
Fucking massholes.
Yeah, I think the lasting impact of Brady is that he moved the goalpost so far that we're going to have to reset, right? There's going to be great Brady and everybody else. And the example is like hockey with Gretzky, man. Like, there's Gretzky and then there's everything else that goes on. You talk about everything else, right? Because he set the goalpost so fucking far away. And what sets those two guys apart from, say, like a Bill Russell in basketball, who gets overlooked a lot. He won 9 championships, but he did it in a different era. He did it in an era when guys from the local YMCA were playing basketball, and he towered and dominated, and he was a great player. He's one of the 5 best players of all time. But like, it's different because he didn't have the same sort of like productivity numbers and everything. That's why MJ kind of elevated to that level. He won the championships and he was so prolific. Brady won championships and was prolific. So like, the goalpost is just moved so far away that I think we are going to be evaluating people very differently. You mentioned the scouting, but also I think success has been changed because he won 7 Super Bowls and went to 10 Super Bowls in the free agency era, when you just can't keep teams together. You don't keep good teams together in the NFL. Parity's built in because of the draft and the way that compensation works, but also the salary cap and etc. During this era, to have that level of success, I think it has the impact is that we have to reset what success looks like in the NFL.
You know, one thing too that we kind of touched base on it last week when we did our cap or facts, but the way he performed this year, like, he has MVP type numbers. So you could also go out on a limb and say he still could have played a couple more years.
Oh yeah.
You know, like,
it's big dick energy.
Yeah.
It really is.
I think if they win the Super Bowl this year, he's back next year for number 3. Like, I think that they didn't win the Super Bowl. I think he was ready to be done, and I think they run it back if they win this year. All right. Hail to.
Hey, I'm almost kind of done with the phrase GOAT, though, for the record, because at this point, I think, again, bringing back the MJ and LeBron thing, but like Brady and all the greats before him, it's greatest of this time, not of all time anymore. We just can't do it anymore. You can't commit to one.
It's a very era-based thing.
Yes.
It's hard to say that, you know, players from this era would be great in old eras. And
if the structure and standards were the same throughout, then it would be fun. But we haven't plateaued yet. So until we get there, we won't know who the greatest of all time is. But greatest of this time just fucking retired. And good, bad, and indifferent. It's a fucking sad day.
Yeah, for sure. For football in general, for sure. Enjoy retirement, Tommy. Enjoy retirement.
Go fuck yourself, Tommy.
All right. All right, let's move on to Thanks, Haskins. All right, I'm gonna I'm gonna start this off. My Thanks, Haskins goes to Bill Belichick, right? And I'm gonna make light of the situation, knowing full well that it's a very grave and
you ain't shit for this, Gary.
We all know that there's an issue with the hiring process in the NFL. However, Bill, you couldn't figure out how to use the fucking text box, right? Like the fucking VCR fucked you up. You couldn't figure out how to program the time. And you sent Brian Flores, congratulations. Like, the Bills and Giants have informed me that you're going to be hired as the head coach. Like, come on, guy. Fucking figure it out, bud. 10 ply. Thanks, Haskins. Stove, what you got, buddy?
Mine just goes along the same lines, and it's basically the NFL and the whole Rooney Rule and the whole fucking coaching carousel that we still don't have head coaches for some of these fucking teams. Like, it's February. Get your shit together. Maybe this is why you're not a playoff caliber team and a playoff caliber franchise. Like, get your shit together. Let's go. Thanks, Haskins.
Raul?
My thanks, Haskins, goes to all of the Cowboys fans that said that this was our year. So, and this thanks, Haskins, goes to any motherfucker that was not down with the Tiger King in the fucking postseason. This thanks, Haskins, and a go fuck yourself goes to anyone who does not believe that we just witnessed the greatest postseason possibly of all time. So, and there's no neither team is, this is the most likable matchup, and fuck me. I haven't given my Super Bowl prediction. I didn't hear your guys.
We're not.
Next week.
Okay, fine. I can't even
We're previewing the big dance next week.
Good, because I'm waffling hard right now.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh, that's so good.
That's my thanks, Haskins.
Yeah, for sure. One quick note before we jump to DMK. You mentioned the Cowboys and this was our year, et cetera, et cetera. My cousin, who's also a Washington fan, and I just last night or 2 nights ago, we're watching the last 2 weeks of the playoffs and realizing, like, we're not fucking close. We are not fucking close. These guys have quarterbacks that are just making plays, and they've got defenses that are stepping up, and they've got weapons all over. We're not close. Like, Rod may feel like we're a quarterback away, but we ain't a fucking quarterback away, buddy.
I think the same about Dallas, man. Like, we're close, but we're still. I mean, look at that team.
We are worlds apart.
We're not the same,
We're
motherfucker.
not the same.
That Rams defense is fucking disgusting, dude. Oh.
All right, let's move on to Dan. All right, I'm going to pass the baton here. Raul, what you got, buddy?
I'm so glad you asked. My damn K goes to, and just going to fucking tie it all in for my time here on the show. My damn K goes to the big state at the NFL for creating such an entertaining Super Bowl. Like, dude, I'm not like, all right, I'll give in to the Illuminati on this one, motherfucker. I am with this shit. And you know what? You missed out on a paywall because I would have been with that too. This is a fire postseason again. This has been incredible. And I am looking forward to this motherfucker.
Well fucking sad, buddy. If it's rigged, they rigged it the right way.
Gang, gang. Yeah, well done.
And
sir.
We ain't got to deal with Jackson Mahomes and fucking Patrick's okay as fuck fiance.
And the memes were fire.
Fire. Stove, what you got, buddy?
Well, but I'm glad you asked. Really am. Because it involves you.
Ooh.
And it involves that team that resides there in Washington. And their new name, the Washington Commanders. Damn, K.
Until they go on the fucking Today Show. This place is a fucking disaster. I hate the name too.
Hey, you just made the comment that you're not close. You really ain't close now.
Really? Look, I will say this. If they had gone and changed like the whole thing and gone to DC Commanders, I think it rolls off the tongue a little bit. But Washington Commanders doesn't roll off the tongue. I saw the logo that got leaked. It looks like shit. They changed the colors too. Like the yellow is like more yellow than gold. That's like a mustard yellow. And I'm so disappointed in this whole process. Like, Jesus goddamn Christ. That's more of a thanks Haskins from me. I know it's a damn K from a Cowboys fan, but
wasn't that your fucking colors to begin with? Was like
they like changed
crimson
the yellow,
and mustard.
Though, we were burgundy and gold, and they changed the yellow.
Okay,
the yellow used to be
under which name, dude? Okay,
Jesus.
Under which name, Gary?
Yeah. Anyway, shitty team names and shitty execution aside, my DMK this week goes out to TB12. We talked about him a bit. I just want to put a stamp on it, man. It has been a magnificent 22 years. He carried some really bad Patriots offenses a long way. 7 Super Bowls, 10 appearances. And I say this every single time somebody brings up the fact that Joe Montana never lost a Super Bowl. Tom Brady never lost a Super Bowl while on the field. He left the field at the end of the fourth quarter with less than 2 minutes left in every one of those losses, having given his team the lead against the Giants both times and against the Eagles. He gave his team the lead and walked off the field only to watch his defense give up the game-winning points. So very well could be fucking 10-0. That'd be unreal. But 7 is already pretty fucking unbelievable. But just it's everything, right? 2017 with the 18 in one season, right? All the touchdowns to Moss, watching Moss just dominate everybody. 50 touchdowns. Moss broke Rice's record this year, right? Stowe mentioned it. MVP level numbers, 5,300 yards and 40, I think, touchdowns. Led the league in both categories. Just magnificent at the age of fucking 44. The way he took care of his body, the way he competed. I'll never forget one of the lasting impressions that I'll take from Tom Brady's time, and we're going to see the video for years and years to come of him on the sideline when his team's in a pinch and he just gets that scowl on his face, and you know it's go time for Tom Brady and the let's go. And now he's got the commercials with, I think it's Hertz and his tagline and all that, like all of that wrapped up in a ball. It's been awesome as an onlooker to appreciate what Tom Brady has done. It's been awesome to listen to the haters. It's been awesome to hear how much Boston area loves him. And as a fan of a team that ain't had a quarterback in fucking 3 decades, like, I'm jealous, bro. Like, I'm jealous of that sort of success, that level of competitiveness, and that level of productivity from the quarterback position. So TB12, everything that is TB12, fuck Deflategate. The NFL can suck a dick from the back on that shit. But damn, K. All right. That brings us to the conclusion of our episode. I want to pass the baton. Raul, you got any closing remarks here?
No, man. I'm sad that we're not going to see any football this weekend. I think I might watch something about Brady. I know that there's some documentary or something that just recently came out, or maybe has been out for a while. I'm going to watch that, just kind of, brush up on old times. You were talking about Randy Moss earlier, and Randy Moss is one of those athletes that you're going to buy 2 different team jerseys of him. Like, there's not very many athletes that switch teams, and you typically will only ever buy 1 jersey of that guy. Right. Moss is one of those dudes you grab 2. And that's because of Brady. Like, without Brady, Moss jerseys aren't selling in Pat's uniforms. They're always going to be Vikings uniforms. And yeah, it's incredible to see the impact all the way across. Gronkowski would not be, he'd just be some fucking meathead.
Party boy.
Yeah.
Stove, closing remarks?
Nah, I'm just, I'm excited to see where this party goes for the coaching carousel this week. I'm really jacked on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my brother brought up the whole 22 seasons. He didn't win double digits one time. And that's nuts. And if you look at Brady's career, there's going to be numbers that you're going to look at and be like, Jesus fucking Christ, like that? Like, good Lord. It's insane. You could go down the list for sure. My closing remarks are I'm excited about the Super Bowl because if this postseason has been any indication of the game we're going to get in the Super Bowl with Joey B and Matt Stafford and all the weapons the Rams have and everything that the Bengals got going for them, Jamar Chase being maybe the most dynamic rookie receiver we've ever seen. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. I can't wait. I can't wait to see Evan McPherson maybe walk one off and for the brand and talk to McAfee about maybe breaking Vinatieri's record because he called his shot, or maybe it's the Rams and Stafford hitting a big pass to Cooper Kupp down the stretch. I'm excited. I'm here for it. I can't wait for it. And I can't wait to preview it next week with you guys. For Big Stove, for Raul, I'm Gary. This has been the Backyard Blitz. We are out.
Gang shit.